Hi, I'm Fran Wormald. I'm a project manager and I work for WSP. I've been working here for 7 years.
Okay, so now for a bit about your educational background, what did you pick for GCSEs, A-levels? How did you go about picking them?
I was really interested in science and maths, but I was also quite artsy person. So I did a broad range of GCSEs. I did sciences, maths, but I also did geography, history, French and Spanish. And for my A-levels, I knew that I kind of wanted to specialise in science, so I picked physics, maths, and then kept English in the mix because I'm just like reading and wanted to kind of keep that artsy side as well.
Okay, so you chose to go to university. Why is it you chose to do that? What did you choose to do? What did that look like for you?
I did choose to go to university because I was encouraged by my family and my school, and I kind of thought it would be fun, like just doing a bit more studying. You kind of go away, move away from home and start your life like independently, which I thought was probably like best for me before I started working. I went to Bristol University and studied civil engineering, and it was quite a shock at first because I hadn't really done engineering as a subject. I'd just done physics and maths and I didn't really know how they combined to become engineering. So it was quite a hard course and I enjoyed it in the end, but I guess I wasn't really prepared for how much studying I would do because I just thought uni was just about partying and like meeting people, but yeah, it was a lot of work, but it was a good course. I enjoyed it.
And how did you find the difference between your A-levels studying maths and physics and then your actual degree studying an engineering subject? Like, what did you find the biggest differences were?
I felt like one of the hardest things was at school, maths and physics, you could sort of like, you could see a question and then practice the answer, like a maths question or a physics calculation. But at university, it was like a bit more theoretical, so you'd have to go and seek out how to answer the question by yourself. And you were in lectures with hundreds of other people, so it wasn't like you could just ask the teacher, like, can you help me with this one question? So there's a lot of self-learning that I had to do that was a big change, yeah.
And for university students like myself, is there any advice you would give to navigate that sort of thing?
I think one of the things I did struggle hardest with, to be honest, is that a lot of my colleagues and the students with me were male, and they had like a totally different learning attitude to me. Like, I wanted to practice and get it right, and I was a bit like intimidated by their confidence, and so I held back on asking questions and asking my lecturers for help. But actually I wish I'd asked for more help because they're there to do that. They are still teachers and they want the students to do well. So that's my bit of advice, yeah.
Okay. And so what caused you to decide to study civil engineering?
I really like maths and science, as I said at school, and I knew that I wanted to carry on learning about them, but I wanted to do it in a practical way, so where it wasn't just about the theory of it, it was about how you apply it to real life, and I couldn't really think of anything better than engineering because it's about creating like a built environment. And I think what I thought at the time was I'll get real job satisfaction being an engineer because I'll get to work on a project, I'll design it, and then I'll see it constructed, and then it'll be built, and like I'll have played a part in that. And I think now I work, I realise that is actually true. So yeah, that was my main motivation.
And so, in engineering, there are multiple different disciplines you could have chosen. So why did you choose civil engineering in particular?
Civil, I guess, is the most easy to see and touch, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
it's all the built environment, buildings, bridges, tunnels, roads, railway, and so mechanical seemed a bit too like small and detailed and fiddly. Aeronautical seemed very specific. Civil just seemed general enough for me, and also very much about the built environment, so like infrastructure and buildings and stadiums, which kind of appealed.
And if you were to choose your degree again, would you still have done civil engineering?
Yeah, I would. As I said at the beginning, I'm now a project manager, so I've kind of moved away from like designing and the technical detail. So I have got another interest in, but I really do like the industry, and I'm glad I did the technical to start with, so I could learn about that to build up my skills to become a project manager.
Okay, and so what advice have you got for students who are trying to choose their subjects now?
I would say that even though it feels probably like you have to choose something that you're really set on and dedicated to and you want to pursue as a career, and even though I've just said that that's what I did, I have so many friends and colleagues who studied what they were interested in, what they loved, and then later on were able to change their jobs or careers and retrain, go back to studying or take like professional exams. So I just don't feel like anyone should feel that they have to make those decisions when they're so young, and that they should just focus on what they're interested in, and life will sort of work its way out to getting to the right place with the job later on.
Okay. So what does a day in your life look like now?
So I usually get into the office by 9 o'clock, have a cup of coffee, and then I'm almost immediately on the phone to the different engineers in the team to check that they're on track to do their work, that they are happy with the quality of information they've received from the client. Usually about midday or most of the afternoon I spend in meetings, telling the client how much money we've got left on the project, when we're going to give them all the drawings and documents for the construction team to build, and let them know if we've got any problems or risks or health and safety questions that come up, and then I wrap up about 5:30.
Okay, and what would you say the hardest part of your job is?
The hardest part's probably the client interface, and it's also the bit I quite enjoy the most because the client's very demanding and they always know exactly what they want, and they usually ask for it really last minute. So my job's to kind of keep them happy, but also protect my team from not being blamed or given too many crazy requests. So sometimes I have to challenge the client and say, hang on, we need a bit more time to give you that information, or you need to give us a bit more money if you're going to expect us to give you some more documents or drawings. So it's challenging, but it's fun.
Okay, and so now for the slightly more technical aspects, what does your day or even week look like?
Well, that's the part of the engineering that's most interesting to me, because usually any engineering challenge I have on site involves multiple different engineers, so fire, electrical, telecommunications, public health and plumbing. So for example, I'm trying to arrange the install of a new electrical cable underground in a very busy road in central London. So I have to go and ask all the different disciplines about how I can coordinate the route of the cable, and then how it's going to go inside through a wall. So I've had to design how the construction team are going to core through the wall and put the waterproofing detail. So there's lots of different teams that have to be involved to make that work happen, and it all has to happen really quickly. So I'm usually on the phone or writing emails all day long, just about even the smallest details, and it's just really satisfying when you've put in all that time and effort and talk to all the different teams, and then it comes together and magically happens. So that's the bit I like.
So you have been listing types of engineering I've never even heard of.
Ah, okay.
So how did you come across engineering at all? Because it's not always the most common discipline that people just know from birth exists.
That's true. I actually have quite a few civil engineers in my family. My uncle, my granddad, and some others as well. And I guess it was a combination of looking at the world around me and being curious about who's responsible for creating these amazing buildings and beautiful architecture and our clean water that we have that comes through the taps. And it was that curiosity plus having people around me who knew about what engineering was as a discipline that kind of guided me there.
So was there anything that you didn't expect that surprised you about your career when you first came into it?
It was good news actually. I've come from the university where there have been very few women. I think it was 20 out of 140 people in my year group, and I came into the workforce and realised there were a lot of women engineers, and not just junior people but senior people too. So it was great because I had people to look up to and who kind of represented me as well, and especially in our London office it was really diverse, people from all around the world, which is really fun to work with.
Are there any misconceptions about what you do that other people have?
Yes, definitely. I think when people hear I'm an engineer, usually they react like, oh, you must be the only woman who's an engineer, which obviously is rubbish. And also, they also expect me to fix everything, like their car and their computer and like why their toilet won't flush. So yeah, I don't think a lot of people don't really understand what engineering is. So yeah, it's usually have to explain it to them.
And on that note, if you were to explain in a couple of lines, what would you say engineering is?
Ooh, engineering or civil engineering?
Let's try both.
Okay. Engineering is the kind of mechanics and physics behind everything that we can sort of see and touch, like the built environment, and that's quite a hard one, I think, for me to answer. But civil engineering is specifically structures and buildings, bridges, roads and tunnels, and the design of those. So that's how I would describe that.
Amazing. All right, and did you have any childhood aspirations, things you wanted to be when you were a child?
Yeah, of course. I mean, my dream fantasy job was being Beyonce's backing dancer, and I still kind of want to do that. But in truth, I think when I was younger, I wanted to be a writer because I really like reading. And that's why I did English at A-level, and I kind of was even thinking about studying at university, but I chose civil engineering in the end because I felt like there was more job security in it.
All right, and what would you say your experience has been so far as a woman in engineering?
I'd say it's been good, and obviously when you come in, like, you're one of a few, so people sort of pay attention and notice you a bit more, which can sometimes be a good thing. They keep you in mind and they remember your name and stuff like that. But I think what's best about it is that in an industry where there aren't that many women, there are some skills which I think some women tend to be better at, like being a bit better organised, being better communicators, and that really lends itself well to my job as a project manager. And sometimes I feel like I am a better communicator than most of my male colleagues, and that's what I'm kind of adding value. So I think it's a great thing, and obviously I think there should be way more women in engineering.
I mean, were you always good at communication? Was that something you had to work on? Or?
I'd say communication, yeah, but organisation and time management, no. As a student, I was terrible at it, and definitely in my first few years of working, I didn't really know how to juggle my time properly and work kind of smarter and not just like long hours. So that was something I learned as I went along, for sure.
And what would you say your biggest lessons in terms of time management and working smart and that sort of thing would be?
Taking advantage of technology and not, you've got all these tools at our disposal, like diaries and calendars and like kind of online organisers and stuff like that, and I really try and embrace that and use that as much as possible to do the hard work for me. And also tools like Excel, they're a bit painful to kind of figure out how to use all the tricks and calculations and stuff that they can do, but after a few years of using those, I've got to a point where I can just drop information in and it pulls it out the other side all prepared for me, and that's the kind of thing which can save a lot of time.
And so as a part of your job, it seems as though you'd be doing a lot of group work and group projects, and even while you were at university and at school. So how have you gone about doing group projects well now? Do you have any advice for those who are having to do group projects now?
Yeah, I found group projects at university a bit painful because I didn't really like that you're sort of randomly put together and expected to work, and you've all got kind of different working styles. So the only one that I really felt like I enjoyed was my dissertation project, which I did with 3 other people. And that one, I think the way we kind of managed it and performed well was because we established who was going to do what from very early on, and also who was naturally more good and interested in certain things. So I took on the project management role, and it just felt natural for me to be the one that told everyone when to coordinate their time to be working on it. And then someone else took on more like a technical quality role, so he could kind of set the benchmark for how good the quality of the work needed to be for it to be accepted by the group as a whole. And that was really kind of organic and worked quite well. But in the world of work, we do all of that, but we do it really formally. So, for example, there's a test called the Myers-Briggs test, which tells you what type of worker you are and what personality you fit in a work group. And I found that and the Belbin team roles both really useful tools to assess who's good at doing what, because when you've got people doing what they're good at and what they're interested in, that's when the team works best. And the other thing that I learned in all my kind of project management training is the four phases of project management, where you're forming, storming, performing, and then disforming. So it's kind of where you all come together and you have loads of ideas. That's what usually happens at the beginning of the project. And then you all clash because you can't agree on what you're going to do. But then you start to kind of like find your gel, your rhythm, and then you're really fully performing and doing the best that your team can do. And so that to me showed like no one should expect it to all be perfect straight away. You have to be patient with people and get through like the difficult bits of projects, team projects, and kind of get to the best bits later down the line. And I think as a project manager, my part to play in that is by being really organised, being as good as I can about communication, and asking like the people who are good at other things for help and input at the right times, because I definitely don't know all the answers when it comes to the technical stuff, but as long as I know who the right people to ask and I communicate with them in a friendly, positive and like collaborative way, I feel like project work is the best way to work. It's so much fun and I really, really enjoy it.
Amazing. And lastly, do you have any advice for people who are trying to get into engineering but have no idea how to start?
I'd say the best thing they can do, and what I wish I'd done more of when I was younger, is get some work experience. Even just a few days or a week at an engineering firm. Even in an engineering firm, you're not interested in what they do or that particular type of engineering. Just getting to see and like feel what it's like to work in that environment would be so useful to know, and help guide you on where you want to go with your engineering career.
Amazing, thank you so much.
You're welcome.